Hey everybody, I am back today with a Spread in My Life Crafted album. This is my Books of 2021 album, and I thought it would be really fun to play a little bit with some of the stamps and the inks and document this book that I read. So I'm going to be using that bark, I think it's called the bark stamp set, but I will definitely have everything linked in the blog, and the link to the blog will be in the description box below. So I want to start by going ahead and stamping this stamp. I am using just some white cardstock from my scrap bin. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and get this stamp ready to go. I love this stamp set. It's you can see I've already kind of discarded the packaging. It is one that I've used quite often, and we're going to play with some distress inks. So I'm going to stamp the stamp twice using some ground espresso distress oxide inks. Little bit of a different take. I usually ink up my stamps using Catherine Pooler, but I want the properties of the distress oxide to be able to create a full-size sheet of pattern paper that I can use for my background. So I'm going to ink this up really good. I'm going to stamp it twice. Then I'm going to shift that white paper down just a little bit so I can put my stamp in and stamp it across the top. I'm going to go ahead and use the same thing, the Distress Oxide ink and ground espresso. I'm only going to stamp the bottom of my stamp. That'll give me a nice, crisp, clean impression. Or I'm going to ink up the bottom. And then I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to ink up the stamp with the ground espresso, and then I'm going to stamp it twice so that I have a full sheet of the wood grain stamp. I left my stamped panel to dry completely, and now we're going to ink blend it right over it. So I'm going to start with some Antique Linen Distress Oxide ink, and I'm going to cover that whole paper with the Antique Linen Oxide ink. Once I have that completely ink blended, I'm going to go ahead and grab some frayed burlap. I'm going to come in from the edges, and I'm going to go ahead and really ink blend the frayed burlap. I am leaving some open spots in the middle, so we have some light areas and some dark areas, but I'm going to go ahead and do that everywhere over the whole panel with the frayed burlap so we get a nice kind of wood looking background. Next, I'm going to go ahead and take the ground espresso ink again, and I'm just going to give the edge a little bit of a darker bit. You can see I'm not going into the pattern paper, and I'm actually just using some of the ink that's like hanging out on my media mat because I just want to get the wee edge a little bit darker. And there's our panel. I'm going to set it aside to dry completely. So I'm going to go ahead now, and I'm going to create, I'm going to call it a quilt. So I went through my One More Chapter papers, all the ones that I had, and I grabbed just the scraps of a bunch of different patterns. I'm going to ink the edges, and I'm going to fill this entire 3x8 page from my album with all these different scraps. So while I do this, we're going to document a book called A Home for Unloved Orphans. It's a really, really sweet book. It almost has the feel less of maybe an adult book, but more of maybe like a young adult book. Like I think a child like maybe 14, 15 and up could definitely read it. It's very clean, and it's just a really sweet, sweet story. It didn't take me very long to read. I if any book takes me less than a month to read, I'm super excited and happy about that. So because I'm just so busy, I don't have a lot of like downtime to read. So, but you can see here how I have pieced together all of these scraps of paper. Now I'm gonna flip my page over, trim the edges, and punch the holes. My Life Crafted album that I document my books in, I use some page protectors, but then I also work off the page protector. So I have some pages in my book that are kind of loose, and then I have some that are in the page protector. And this is the type of spread we're working with today. So the page on the right, or the page on the left, is a 3x8 page, and then the page on the right fits into a page protector that comes with the Life Crafted albums. So I have a whole bunch of the different die cuts that come in this collection, and I just want to go ahead and kind of stagger and tuck some of these die cuts into each other and around, keeping it really simple and kind of clean, because I did all that work on the background, and I don't want to switch it. I don't want to mess it up. I'm grabbing some staples. For those of you that are part of the Rediscover Your Stash Facebook group, you'll know that my tiny attachment busted last month, and I finally replaced it because I let it not be in my craft room for a couple of weeks. I wanted to see if I would miss it. That's kind of what I do when a tool breaks. Do I want to replace it? Do I not want to replace it? Let's live without it for a little bit. Well, I could not live without my tiny attachment. I missed it a lot, so I knew that I needed to go ahead and just invest in another one. So I did. On the left side of my page, I just am keeping it really simple. So as I work through this book, I am going to go in and add like how many stars I gave each book, when I started reading the book, when I stopped, when I finished the book, those kinds of things. But and now I kind of keep that information just on a Post-it note. And before the album is completely finished, I'll go through and do like some batch stamping. But for now, this layout is done. Here are all of the close-ups. If you want to check out this store and grab some of these products, remember to use my code DTSarah. That will get you a nice discount. And I hope to see you all again very, very soon. Talk to you later. Bye.